Yes.
It's a pleasure to be here and to share with you my journey, which I wrote on my book Rebirth at 50. And to begin, I want to make some disclaimers. The first one is that English is not my first language. This is my second presentation in English. And as I say in my book, I say that stress is for Parkinson, the same as kryptonite is for Superman. So I'm a bit stressed, so my symptoms and maybe rather...
Excellent.
Yes. Okay. So with this kryptonite, I will go ahead and continue by saying that I'm not an expert in Parkinson's. So it's not my intention to teach you nothing. So why am I here? I have a very tough time going through my acceptance process. And I really didn't have peace until I find a what for. And I want to share with you something that happened to me some weeks ago. Some months ago, I decided to ask for early retirement because I was very tired working. I was doing such a great effort to continue working, and I decided to ask for early retirement. And it's a very horrible process, at least in Uruguay, to get the approval to get the early retirement because of an illness. And in that process, I had some interviews. One was with a psychiatrist, and he was looking at my medical file, and he told me, here it says that we are having depression and anxiety, and how will you explain to me that you are depressed? And I told him what I thought, and I said to him that I didn't want to socialize very often. And he told me, reading my file, but here your psychiatrist says that you have been to Mexico to present your book. How can you explain to me that you wanted to go to Mexico to give a conference? What is your book about? And I thought, I'm lost. How can I convince this psychiatrist that that going through a depression situation, I have wanted to go to Mexico to present my book. So I answered him. My book is about my journey with Parkinson's disease, and giving that conference helped me to find a sense to what is happening to me. So I am only interested, and I want to socialize, to tell others what is about going through Parkinson's disease. And I passed the exam. That psychiatrist said, yes, it's okay to give her the early retirement. So this is this was an example to tell you what is this, to try to find a what for. I want to spread a message that life doesn't need to end with the diagnosis, because that was what I felt when I got my diagnosis. So I want to tell you some of the backstage of the writing of my book, rather than dwell deeply on the book itself. So who I was before the diagnosis, and so this can explain how I was feeling with the diagnosis. I was living what I thought it was a perfect life, and I had everything under my control. And later I understood that it is something that we share. Persons with Parkinson share some characteristics of being perfectionists and controllers, providers, and we want to, we are very hard with ourselves and with our duties. So as a child, I was a model child. I took ballet classes. I was the best student of my class. I took piano classes. I took theater classes. I took English lessons. And as an adult, I played to be a superwoman. I wanted to be the best, and as a wife, as a worker, as a friend, as a mother. And while I was preparing this presentation, an image and a situation came to my mind. On the right, the picture on the right, I was giving a class at the university, and a student had taken his baby to breastfeed. And the baby started crying nonstop. And what I did was ask the student to give me the baby, and I crawled the baby to calm him down while I continue with my class. So this situation, for me, it's an example that I thought that I could take care of and resolve anything that happened around me. I thought that I could solve any problem, and I will go ahead and ahead and ahead and ahead. Another thing that happened to me is that one time and another, I will cross with these comments. Everything that Flor does, she does it well. Sometimes with admiration, sometimes with a bit of annoyance. My mother-in-law comments often went in that sense, in the later sense. I remember asking my husband, how did Florencia cook the home pasta ravioli? Because she was an expert cooker. And my husband told her, Florencia's ravioli were great, better than yours. And she was very unhappy with that, my husband comment. And another time she asked my husband, and how is Florencia doing with her driving lessons? Oh, great, she drives well. Oh, she also drives well. The also was very clear that she was not happy with me doing everything well or better than she was doing. Another characteristic of me is that I would accept every offered job. I never applied for a job. I was always being offered to join teams. And one day I counted that I had 7 bosses because I had working at the university, working as a consultant, coordinating international or regional teams. And I was trying to do my best at every job. So to this woman, facing the diagnosis of Parkinson's disease was just a bolt of lightning rushing from head to toes. And I remember asking this question: is it now when everything ends? Because that was really what I was thinking. I was working. I can't find a situation to describe that I was at the peak of my career. I was working at the presidency of the Republic, in the highest position that one can achieve. My office overlooked the sea, what is the top place to have an office in Montevideo. I had a corner office. So symbolically, I couldn't achieve a higher position than that. I was respected and consulted in everything that happened around my field of expertise, that was childhood policies. And I remember sitting in that desk and asking me, is it now when everything ends? And if it is not, how on earth do you continue? I went through the list of symptoms and I got terrified because I found them humiliating and embarrassing. People's reactions paralyzed me. Some people started to cry when I told them about my diagnosis. Some people told me, think of a miracle. Others told me, it is impossible that you have Parkinson's disease. See another doctor. Others changed the topic. So after some experiences like that, I decided to lock myself in and not talking to anybody else about my disease. After the first year, I found in journaling the best tool to help me going through the acceptance process. But it was just journaling, just for myself, in the most honest way that I could ever write. Nowadays, some people tell me, I don't know that you were a writer. And I tell them, neither did I. I wrote in my work, but I wrote manuals for nutrition, for complementary feeding, for breastfeeding, for lifestyles about nutrition, but I never had written nothing about my emotions and my feelings. But one day I started writing and I said, wow, it feels so good. And it was the first thing ever that I think that I did entirely to please myself. and not to please others. And it felt so good. But I started writing some pages, never thinking of publishing them, never. They were very intimate feelings, very raw feelings. And one day I was walking through the Rambla. The Rambla is an avenue that goes all along the sea in Montevideo. And I was thinking, this couldn't have hit me more in my core. I felt like the September 11 hit on the towers on the United States, because I was thinking that every characteristic of me was threatened by the disease. And I imagined a dialogue with an evil fairy in which she said to me, "Do you think you can have everything under your control? Well, it's turned out that you can't even control your right hand. Can there be anything more symbolic than losing control of your right hand?" The fairy continued, "Do you think you can achieve perfection? Well, it's turned out that you are now visibly imperfect. Can there be anything symbolically more imperfect than a disability, and as visibly imperfect as Parkinson's disease?" The fairy insisted, "Do you think you can do anything you set your mind to? Then you will have to feel in your flesh what it's like to feel vulnerable. Can there be a greater feeling of vulnerability than that you experience when you know you have a disease that will limit you more and more, but you don't even know how and when will it happen? And with the particularity that it is a neurodegenerative disease." And with no compassion, the fairy finished by asking, "Do you believe that your intelligence is greater than that of the rest? And are you proud of your efficiency and your ability to work? Well, now your brain images show large blue areas of neurons that don't work. Your precious brain is visibly damaged. Nothing could have been more enlightening." So the evil fairy left me at the crossroads. All my identity had been threatened. So I had only two options: to think or to start over. In that process, I took some decisions. One, I wouldn't give up. I fall and rise 1,000 times. And I want to share you one of the hardest and most humiliating situations of one of that falls. I had already begun to write, and I have taken that decision of starting over. And my sister made me an invitation. She had rented an apartment in Florencia, in the city of Florence, and she invited me to go with her. And I thought, this is a signal. My name is Florencia. She is inviting me to the city of Florencia. I must go, and I will rebirth in Florencia. And my book will be called Rebirth at Florence. But when I was looking at the city of Florencia from that viewpoint, what I was thinking was, you are so stupid. You didn't learn anything. You didn't learn anything. You think that you can control even where and when to rebirth. You have learned nothing. There's so much you have to learn still. So I was feeling terrible that I was still thinking that I could control everything. And it took me 4 years more to think and to feel that I have finished the acceptance process, and that I could think about having rebirth. It occurred 4 years later that when I decided to. In those processes, creativity had a great role. Many people think that my Parkinson friendly handbag that I designed and sewed by myself is the icon of creativity. But I say that the major expression of creativity was to imagine myself in a different version of myself. That was the greatest challenge regarding creativity. So as I started writing, the book it's a reflection of the milestones that I went through my acceptance process. As I was saying previously, the book was not intended to be published, but I started writing, and it started I started to name chapters, and then started to name parts, and then giving a structure of the book. Despite I hadn't decided to publish it. So as I was saying, I did it entirely to please myself and not to please others. And I had a great time and fun choosing the titles of the chapters. For instance, I named a chapter "The Vines Shake to the Beat of the Tarot" because I like it. I didn't ask for permission to write anything. So the first part, it's, I don't know if you know Mafalda. Mafalda is a character of Kino, an Argentinian writer. She says, "Stop the word. I want to get off." Because what I was thinking is that all that acceptance process, I would have preferred to go away the word, had time to think, to clear my mind, and then return. But it was not possible. All this acceptance process occurred while life went on. Second part is a new milestone, and that was to discover what good was in Parkinson's disease. And I named that part after something that I heard from Antonia, a blind woman. She said, "Going past fears to discover the wonders of something different." And I remember thinking, if that blind woman can say this and can discover the wonders of the difference, how couldn't I? And I talk about a lot of things here, and I finished this part listing what good did Parkinson's bring me? And I was surprised that there was much things on that list that I have imagined before. Third part is about the pre-levodopa era, face to face with the symptoms, having to realize that I was not prepared to be treated as a disabled person. Part 4 is a part that was asked me to write by a psychologist that read my drafts. She told me, Florencia, it will be very important that you write something for the others. And I was surprised to discover how much I had to tell the others. The others are the health professionals, the family, the team co-workers, and it finished being a very nice part of my book. Honeymoon is when I started with levodopa and I got energy to do many things. And the last part are letters. I was asked by the husband of a friend of mine to write something about my daughters. And I decided to write some letters. And that was a very important milestone to tell my loved ones the more important things that I have to tell them. And I drained the tear tanks, reservoir included, while I wrote these letters. Then I have the people that have read my drafts telling me, Florencia, you must publish your book. Florencia, there's a lot of people that will benefit by reading your book. So I decided, or I was convinced to publish it. And then there were two things that I have to solve. One is that I haven't spoken to anybody during 5 years about my disease. And I haven't spoken in public about my disease. So what was I going to do? So I went to see my therapist and realized that there was nothing wrong to be fragile and strong at the same time, and that if I cry in public or cry in front of a camera of a TV program, there was nothing wrong with that. It could have benefits even of more rating if some tears come during that program. The other thing that I have to resolve was how would I print my book? So I went to check with some editorials. The answers were, well, you have to pay for it. And I would have had to sell my car to pay for what I was asked. Or, well, if you have it written, bring it to me and I will see. And I said, no, my time is different. I feel good now. I feel strong enough now to share what I want to share. So I decided to go by myself. My daughter took the picture of the cover. She designed the book because she's an architect. I found help everywhere to do every part of the book, and everything was done entirely at home while my husband cooked. All the family was helping, and the book was published. But I discovered that there were no tears while I began to talk, because I discovered the heavy backpack that I had over my shoulders. So after not having spoken to almost anyone for 5 years, I appeared on the TV to talk about my book 4 days before my presentation. I took my husband as an escort because I thought I would start crying. But it was the opposite. I felt relief and started to talk and wouldn't stop.
Impulsar a que se hable con naturalidad del tema. Yo el otro día me veía por primera vez hablando frente a una cámara con respecto a este tema y decía, ¿cómo pude estar tan tranquila? Yo creo que tenía una desesperación tan grande por sacarme esa mochila de que el tema sea tabú, que estaba fascinada. Y sabés que tengo ganas de pararme en la Plaza de Independencia y gritar fuerte, que pasan todas estas cosas porque tengo paz.
So what was the public reaction about? Why were 300 people joining me in my presentation, telling me that I was brave and admirable because of what I was doing? I really get in shock. I didn't expect all those people, all those gifts, all those comments. They made a queue to greet me at the end of the presentation. I didn't understand. I was thinking why it is embarrassing to say that one has a neurodegenerative disease and does not feel the same when saying that one has, for example, diabetes. Why? Why do you have to make such an exhausting effort to try to hide what is happening to you? Why feel embarrassed? Why why do you need to be brave and to tell that you have a disease? Why? Why is people giving me an ovation because I am telling openly about my disease? And I started asking people, why didn't you tell me that you knew about my disease? Because nobody, except for 10 people, told me that they knew about my disease. And the answer was out of respect. But they left me alone with my disease. So I started shouting, I have Parkinson's disease, and that's why all these things happened to me. And the reactions of the public with or without Parkinson's surprised me a lot. The post-publication phase, it was impossible to have imagined what happened there. first, it was very strange to know that my book and all those things that I have written for myself were not anymore mine. The book started traveling. I started giving presentations with my readers. I never rented a conference room to make a presentation. All was done with the help of my readers. I started traveling and giving conference outside my country until COVID pandemic came. And in Mexico, I met Marie on the left. And when the pandemic exploded, I thought how to take advantage of adversity. And I called Marie and asked her, Marie, what are you doing in Mexico nowadays? She's an American living in Mexico. Don't you want to translate my book? And she told me, well, yesterday I was thinking offering to translate the book. So in record time, Rebirth at 50 came out. And with that, and with time, because of lockdown, I had time to participate in the social nets. And I was surprised by all the things that happened and that I would have never have imagined. But the last slide is to tell you that I think that the most important thing that I have done is to put together my Uruguayan readers with young onset Parkinson's disease females. And it has been life-changing for everyone in that group. And for ending, I would like to thank you for letting me find a sense to what I have gone through.